The following program is brought to you as a community service of Time Warner Cable. The views and opinions expressed on this program by the hosts and guests do not necessarily represent the views of Time Warner Cable.
Hello, everybody. You know, life is a journey, and our guest has had and is having the most amazing journey. She had a Muslim mother. She was taken by her mother to a Catholic orphanage. This is all in Pakistan. Then she was adopted by a Dutch family, and her journey continues. And it is incredible. Her book is With All My Might. And in her book, she shows why she is the strong woman that she is today, despite a lot of adversity that would have really ruined other people's lives totally. So stay with us. But first, I want to say that this section of Conversation with Gloria Greer is brought to you by the Camelot Theaters at 2300 Barristo Road in Palm Springs. And the Barristo shows the finest independent films from throughout the world, as well as art films, documentaries, just the best. It's all at the Camelot, and there is also fine food in the Camelot Cafe, as well as upstairs in the International Camelot Lounge. So do join us at the Camelot. The number to call for information about films is 760-325-6565. Well, I never thought about it, but when I read the book, I thought, my, you would certainly make a motion picture could be made from your life. And I'm going to start at the beginning.
Okay.
When you were a baby, which of course you don't remember the first 10 days of your life, hardly, but it is an interesting story. And yes, how you went from this Muslim mother to the orphanage and then later the adoption by the Dutch family.
Yeah.
So can you just, in your own words, tell me what you knew about the beginning?
Okay, so what I know, a lot has been told, of course, to me. But what I know from the beginning is that this lady basically wanted to put a baby at the steps of the orphanage. The baby happened to be me. And the nuns must have been really, really quite adept, meaning they were fast on their feet. It must have happened often. And so they went instantly out and said, you know, please don't do this. Please give her a chance and give her her birth date and give her a name. Mm-hmm. And they did. Now, she really wanted to just leave you there because she thought you'd be better off, obviously. Yes. She did not have the funds to take care of you properly. No. But she just was going to leave you. Yes, because I think they were scared. They were scared for repercussions. And if you think of Pakistan today, you can already imagine a Muslim mother, this must have been a baby out of wedlock. Because I think if she had been married, there wouldn't even have been the question. Yeah. So I think that would have been, I'm just guessing here, that would have been the problem.
And then she took you to the orphanage, and you were there for 3 years, correct?
I was there for 3 years,
and you do remember some of that,
I remember
vaguely.
Some. Yeah, images. It's really funny. I went, when writing the book, I went back in hypnotherapy, because I actually wanted to know more. And because I've always had a good memory of the orphanage. And when I listen to my adopted family, they always talk so gloomy about it. So it didn't quite jive with the way I felt. And I actually remember only good things.
Well, that's
and
good.
I'm sure it was not a nice situation, but I remember that they were kind. And that kindness carries.
And then there was a lady named Helen, and
Yes.
she wanted you to have a better life. And an adoptive parents, and I'm going to let you tell that story, and then I'll ask you some questions. But when you arrived with your father and the teddy bear, I read that and it made me very sad, and yet it was a happy moment.
Yes.
But it's a beautiful moment.
It is, because first of all, everyone was so curious about this adoption, so there were a lot of family members at this airport. So there was like a sort of too much noise, and I got really scared. And I think everyone forgot one thing in the mix. When I left Pakistan and I said goodbye to Helen, I actually went with a couple. So I told Helen very recently, only this summer, because she lives in Florida and is still alive, I said, I must have thought those were my parents. There was not.
How would you know?
Yeah.
But they were related.
They were
to your
related.
parents.
She was my father's sister.
Yeah.
So she was related, and
And they flew over to Pakistan to pick you up.
Yeah, because she worked for KLM. So they went into a KLM flight that went to Rawalpindi. But when I arrived and I saw all these people, and they kind of disengaged from me, so the only last connection was this couple, and here I see them walk away from me. My father said that I was really like kind of fist-balled and just standing there like,
petrified.
Okay, yeah, what's going to happen now? Who are all these people? And don't forget, a strange language.
Yeah, that you had never heard
I'd
before.
never heard Dutch.
Yeah.
And so my father, who's very, very tall, and especially to a little girl, went on his knees and basically went down with that teddy bear and really cajoled me into taking
Now,
it.
can you still, it's long ago, but can you still remember that moment?
I remember more the vague memory of him and me, not necessarily the good feeling. He was honestly gentle and was totally accepting.
Yeah. Now,
And I remember that.
Now, your parents, they were Dutch. They had children.
Yes.
Were blue-eyed blondes.
Yes.
And you were quite different looking than they were. And so that kind of affected you? Were you aware of that in the beginning?
Yes and no, because don't forget, in the orphanage they taught me a little bit of French, they taught me English, so I had already a mixture of languages before the age of 3. And the nuns came from Belgium. So basically seeing Westerners was not what threw me off, I think. I think what threw me off is the reaction towards me. You know, I'm this little girl with a bald head, basically shaven, millimeter hair. And it's just not as pretty as a little girl with
It's
curls.
your hair
and,
now.
Yeah, this is my real hair, pigtails. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
And so, I felt like I was out of place. And I think feeling that is much more important than if it's the reality. I just felt like there was such a discrepancy between them and me. And enhanced by the conformity. And I really have learned to use this word because a child is just a child. And we try to make people, and I accuse myself for doing this from time to time too, to friends, we try to put them into a comfort zone that we feel good with. And that's not correct. So in my case, they started calling me Ellen instead of Gabriella. And I instantly, you instantly go like, what's that? For 3 years I was called Gabriella. I already had a name change. So I was quite dynamic, I think, and quite forceful. And I said, I'm Gabriella. And I just kept pointing.
And you wouldn't accept Ellen.
I would not conform.
No, and obviously your mother was a strong woman who had in her mind what she wanted of this little girl she adopted.
Yeah, and she thought,
it
wow.
wasn't you at the time.
No, because she was of the opinion that little girls and young people should listen. And this was another generation too. Listen and behave, be seen and not heard. And that was something that was totally new to me. And a diplomatic world too, with a lot of protocol.
Yeah, well, I didn't say. Now, your father was with the
EU.
EU, yeah.
Today it's called the EU. Back then it was the EEC, and he was had a good position. It was obviously an affluent family, and so there were a lot of things that went with that. That was totally new for me.
Well, in the book you mentioned for the first time with silverware, which you had never used.
No.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, but still till this day, a lot of Middle Eastern people actually wash their hands and eat with their hands.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If you look at Moroccans and all that, they actually eat with their hands. You have a big bowl on the table.
Well, you know, I can't help wondering about other children who are adopted, and not, I mean, children from different races. And this is becoming more and more prevalent today. And I wonder if they have the same feeling, because they don't, they love their parents love them, but they don't match their parents physically.
I can answer a little bit to that because of my daughter.
Right.
So my daughter is of mixed race, and I can also answer that I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I don't think we need to be adopted today. We fall in love with people, we fall out in love, unfortunately, with people too. And so we have all these mixed children today that are between, I would say, 18 and 28. We have a big chunk of people that are, for example, half Japanese, half American, or like my daughter, half Belgium, half Pakistani. And she says, I'm a quarter Dutch too.
But she doesn't look Pakistani
she
at all.
She doesn't. So
apparently.
I would say from her perspective, I have found something that I found sad. And again, we always come back to acceptance. We need to accept that we're from both races. And we do though, but we can't put one in front of the other. And I think we do. Because for a child, it is easier to say, if I lived here today, right? I'm your neighbor and I'm a little kid and I live near you, and let's pretend my father would be Belgian. I will tell you, or American, let's take American. I would say I'm American. I'm not gonna go around saying I'm half this and half that. You accept the country that you live in too. So that prevails.
So are you now a Canadian? Or you consider yourself Dutch?
I still consider myself Dutch. I have not taken the Canadian nationality as of yet, and I don't know if I will. But the children do struggle with this, and my daughter would find the Western nationality, in this case, more important than going around saying I'm half Pakistani, because it's a difficult situation to introduce.
Well, and I would think that situation, now I know when you went to school, at first, because your father was a diplomat, there were children from all over.
All over.
Which was kind of wonderful, I think. Marvelous.
I think it's
And then
amazing.
later, when you were in Belgium, it was different.
It was different in Holland.
It was Holland, excuse me, I'm sorry. You were in Belgium, but yeah.
Belgium was all the same because there were all these EU kids. We had 9 countries, and so they were all there. It was a Western group, but they were honest. For me to deal with bullying with little children was way easier than to deal with bullying with adults, or I wouldn't call it bullying, I would call it inacceptance, total intolerance of the diplomatic world seeing me at parties was not, you know, they would say, this little girl should actually go wash her hands before she shakes mine.
Isn't that awful?
I've experienced that.
Yeah.
And the problem is that you really don't know what to do.
Particularly if you're a child.
You're a child and you think by yourself, is she serious? And I really, really mean that with all my heart. I couldn't understand what this lady was saying to me. And I almost thought I had it wrong until my father kind of shooed me out. And it's obviously in the book that, because it left huge markers.
There's a lot in the book, and I want to get to some of the other things. But first, it's time for our sponsors.
Okay.
So hold your thought.
I will.
And we'll come back to little Gabriella when she was little and then grew up to be quite a woman. Well, as a diplomat's daughter, you did probably always get good food.
I did.
And from all countries.
I did, definitely.
So in a way, you had a privileged life, and yet you always felt lost at times and bullied, which is something that we hear a great deal about today.
Yeah. It's too bad that bullying still is...
Do you feel you were bullied? Your size, you were smaller than anybody, but was it color?
I think in Holland it was color back then. We moved from Belgium to Holland, and I had a bad experience on the schoolyard where basically I was ripped off my skirt and everything, and I just kind of stood there. But not to give it all away, but
No.
I would have wished, honestly, that a bystander would have upped his standard to stand just closer to me.
Yeah.
I have never understood in any of the bullying I've ever seen, whether it's adults in the workforce, I see it too in Vancouver, and or in as children, is 80% just stands there, Gloria.
Yeah.
They just actually stand there. And all we need, the victim,
Yeah.
is that someone stands a little bit closer. You don't even have to talk. I'm a big advocate that I understand, actually, that the bystander is also scared because they want to belong to the group that is obviously popular. So they're not going to do anything against the bullier. But the bullier is attacking the uniqueness of the victim. The victim is too young to understand. And so the victim is just paralyzed with fear. In my case, I just stood there. You know, I couldn't move. And so if someone out of that group would have moved closer to my body without saying a word, the whole dynamics would have changed.
So you really believe that this is something that people can do to try to stop bullying throughout the world? It isn't only we read about it in this country, but you say in Vancouver.
For all your listeners, honestly, the bystander can do this. And they, I mean, if they're courageous, then say it's not okay.
Yeah.
But if they're not courageous, just the physical getting closer to the victim would change all the dynamics. The bullier would stop dead in its tracks because it would see that. And the dynamic will have changed instantly.
All right, now, to bring you more up to date, I'm not going to go to all that's in the story
No, of
because
course.
we have two marriages in the story. But I'm wondering, because of the fact that you were born in Pakistan, and obviously so,
Yes.
whether after 9/11 things got kind of worse for you or not.
They did. I didn't think so. I mean, honestly, I thought 9/11 was terrible for everyone. And I visited New York with my daughter 5 to 10 days prior. So I left like 4 days before it happened.
Yeah.
So it was near and dear to my heart, of course, and everyone when this happened. And I was in Holland, and I could not believe it that within a month of 9/11, someone actually refused to be with me in a room because she said that I looked like the people on television. And I did. I mean, to tell the truth, I do. So at the one hand, you're standing there because you can't fault someone for believing something that they wholeheartedly believe in. But again, my entire journey of acceptance, why can't we do this with post 9/11 too? Because we cannot go around with so much fear and so much phobia that every Sikh, every person that looks like me, that we would be afraid. And I find it really timely, we still do.
But you somehow have managed to
I have
not only
managed-
have a wonderful career, now you're writing, but you've also taught. You apparently do very well with people and computers. You taught seniors in Vancouver.
Yes.
And so you were able to know who you are and say, okay, this is me, and go on.
Because I've decided that I always thought that I needed to belong. I finally got it. I don't need to belong. I can actually stand here with a leg in the East and a leg in the West and feel comfortable in both groups.
Right.
And what I realized, and of course this didn't happen overnight, and this didn't happen when I'm a rebellious 16-year-old or a frightened 9-year-old, but I realized that I need to show you and everyone out there that I'm okay. And if I do that, then you will start accepting who I am. And if I say a word or two in Dutch, or you come to my house and you'll eat things that you've never eaten before.
I want to go to your house when I go to Vancouver the next time.
That sounds
I love
really
Vancouver.
good.
I really do.
And that's what I'm saying. That's the message. That's how to get out of this terrible situation of post 9/11. Don't be a victim again, because Middle Eastern people also go into the victim side. So if I say to you, well, they didn't give me this job because I look this way. No, I need to go in and say, listen, I know I look like those people. Now, give me a chance.
Right.
Same thing. Or when I don't have enough experience for a job, don't I do the same thing? I'm not going to cover it up because I know they will see that I lack the experience, but I have the enthusiasm to do it.
And you went through, and I am going to give this part away about your marriage, your first marriage, and your child, and your in-laws who would never accept you or even see you.
Yeah. Again, I think I had a bit of a turbulent childhood with this bullying and not fitting in. And so I think...
And your parents really didn't understand that, did they?
And I couldn't tell them
you went through
either.
it, they didn't.
No.
Yeah.
But they would have helped me. They would have, honest, in the best of their ability, my mother would have helped me if I had told her. But I couldn't go through the humiliation again. So that's one of the things that I think we can do. But so... I lost my train of thought.
We were talking about your child and your child's grandparents.
Yes. So
the other
being
grandparents.
hidden, I already felt that had happened to me as a child. So I now, in hindsight, realize that I thought that kind of behavior was okay. It was kind of like, okay, I'll do my best to show I'm a good girl, I'm a good mother, and then they'll accept me somehow. And that was wrong of me. Today, I would never, ever give that advice to anyone. I would say, you have to stand up of who you are.
What would you have done then?
I think I would have stood up a little bit more. I would have gone with my husband to the dinners.
Because you were alone on all the holidays when he was with your little girl.
Yeah.
They did not want to accept until they saw her.
They
Blonde and blue-eyed, and then they accepted her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
But again, they were frightened.
But what of?
Of the unknown, of a comfort zone, of me maybe bringing in 20 family members from Pakistan, which I don't know.
I know. And you've never been able to go back there.
No, no. And it seems like I won't be very lucky to go back there. I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, actually, it's getting longer and longer. Time flies, actually. This was in 2007. I wanted to go to India for my work.
And which work was that? So our viewers know.
Yeah. Someone had asked me to help out for immigration reasons and to go for 3 days to Bombay, basically. I wasn't allowed in. Because my passport is Dutch and it said born in Pakistan. So at the last moment, they didn't want to give it to me, the Indian consulate, because there's so many problems between with Kashmir.
Right.
So the closest I would ever come to my own country would be India. Yeah. So I would love to go to India.
And you don't think that will ever be? Or do you think maybe someday?
That someday should be able to happen. But I don't think Pakistan is a safe place.
Apparently not.
And
you were warned, don't go.
No, exactly. The Dutch consulate said, we can't protect you, so.
Yeah. So you can never go back and say, well, this was my roots.
No. No. And again, maybe one last thing that I would like to just mention, because there's so much adoption too. We need to think when we adopt what we're doing to the heritage. We really need to take that into consideration. I know that we have good hearts, and I know we want to help, and I'm grateful. I'm definitely grateful. But we need to understand that we do take a heritage away that can never, ever be replaced.
Well, at least now, a child who's adopted, if they've been adopted, let's say, in this country, they can find out who their natural parents were. But years ago, that was absolutely verboten. I mean, really. The child was adopted, and there was never any release of who the mother or the father that gave birth.
No.
And you have a wonderful outlook. And I went to something, was UCP, United Cerebral Palsy, the other day, people who are handicapped. And this one man spoke, he's a teacher, and he has a mobility issue with UCP. And he said, 10% of our lives are what happens to us, you know, the other 90% is what we do with it and our attitude. And your attitude is just remarkable, really.
I fall down, I retry over and over till I get it right.
Correct.
And we learn a lot along the way.
What would you like to say, we have very little time left, to someone who's watching, who may be going through something that you have?
I would say you got to dig deep to find out what it is you want. Go after it. Don't let anyone say to you that your dreams cannot be accomplished, because they can. And it all starts with you. Stop blaming everyone else. Take your own life in your hands.
Right.
And make something out of it.
That's wonderful. I want to thank you so very much, and again say that the book is With All My Might by Gabriella van Rij. And there's two other names in the middle.
That's okay.
It's on the book. Anyway, it's really an interesting read. And again, I want to thank you so very much. Wish you the best of luck. You're going to be on CNN soon. And I hope that you'll be back with us. And don't forget that you can look at my website, www.gloriagreer.com, or go to Facebook and facebook.com/GloriaGreerPS, or occasionally I tweet on Twitter, and I'm small scribe there. So I look forward to seeing you right here again the next time. You'll be with us, and you can also see us, of course, on demand, anytime, 24/7, any time of day or night, on Time Warner Desert Cities On Demand. See you there.